The millionaire's heart almost stopped when he saw a little girl with the same birthmark he had worn on his arm since childhood. With a trembling voice, he asked, "Whose daughter are you?" The answer he heard shook him to the core and brought the past back with full force. Rodrigo had never been particularly fond of attending charity events. It wasn't that he didn't care, he even helped a lot behind the scenes. But such events, with photographers and people trying to show off, made him feel awkward. Nevertheless, that Saturday he went. The invitation came from the Svetozavtra Institute, an NGO that helped needy children in the southern part of Sao Paulo. He had made a large donation the previous month, and he was insistently asked to come and personally see where the money was going. He arrived at the place in a blue polo shirt, jeans, and sneakers. He tried to look more ordinary, like everyone else, but everyone still noticed he was different. His car was different, his gait was different, even his modest watch cost more than the combined salaries of everyone present. The place was a simple school, hastily renovated to look presentable. Toys were scattered in the yard, volunteers handed out hot dogs, popcorn, and soda. Children's music played too loudly. Rodrigo felt awkward, smiled at the corner of his mouth, shook hands, took pictures with some children, wanted to leave quickly, but pretended to be comfortable. At that moment, a girl with pigtails in a purple polka-dotted dress ran up to him to grab a doll. He extended his hand to give her the toy. But when she took it and turned away, Rodrigo stopped. Time seemed to freeze for a few seconds. He stared intently at the girl's left arm. There was a birthmark, small, round, just below her shoulder. It was exactly like his. Rodrigo took a step back, felt a chill in his stomach, and a slight dizziness. He looked at his birthmark on his hand, then at the girl's. It was there, just as clear. He was in shock. The girl didn't even notice. She ran off, laughing, with the doll, calling out to a woman sitting on a nearby bench. Rodrigo, without thinking, followed them. Approaching closer, he watched from a distance. The woman the girl was calling seemed tired, a little depressed. She was in her early 30s. She wore torn jeans, a loose blouse, her hair gathered in a messy bun. She smiled at her daughter, took the doll, and opened her arms. Rodrigo was stunned. This couldn't be true. This woman was Carolina. His heart beat faster, his throat tightened. He froze, not knowing what to do. More than 7 years had passed since he last saw her. The last time was at the airport when she walked him to his boarding gate and said, "Good luck." After that, she disappeared without calls, messages, or explanations. He searched for her, tried to understand, even got angry for a while. Then he swallowed his resentment, telling himself it was the past. But now the past was here, a few meters away from him, hugging a girl with the same birthmark as his. Rodrigo slowly walked away, confused. He needed to breathe. He picked up his phone, went to his car, got in, and closed the door. For a few minutes, he sat with his forehead pressed against the steering wheel. He couldn't think clearly. His head was spinning. Could it really have been Carolina? Could this girl be his daughter? No, he shook his head. This is crazy, just a coincidence. There are many such birthmarks. And if it really is Carolina, why did she never tell me? Why didn't she look for him? Why did she disappear so suddenly? He called his assistant, Marcella, who was his right-hand man, and asked him to find out everything he could about the girl and the woman with her. Name, address, everything. Marcella didn't ask questions, just said, "Just trust me." Rodrigo hung up and looked back at the school building. Children's music was still playing, children ran back and forth. Everything seemed the same, as if nothing had happened. But for him, everything had changed. Something wasn't right here. Something very important was hidden. And for the first time in a long time, Rodrigo felt that he had to know the truth. Not out of curiosity, but from a deep feeling in his chest that he couldn't explain. It seemed as if the world had suddenly turned 180 degrees, and he hadn't noticed. And the girl smiled easily and gently, like Carolina. Maybe it was just an impression? Rodrigo remembered that smile well, how it made him laugh effortlessly, how she danced around the house to loud music, and how they dreamed of the future. But most of all, he remembered the emptiness he felt when she disappeared. Meanwhile, the girl's name was Ana Luya. He heard someone call her that. She played calmly, unaware that her presence had shaken the world of a man who didn't even know who she was. But Rodrigo's gaze was fixed on her. He wouldn't leave until he understood what was happening. Something was either very wrong or very right, and he had to find out what it was. That night, Rodrigo couldn't sleep. He went to bed early but tossed and turned, staring at the ceiling, his head full of thoughts. The image of the girl with the birthmark wouldn't leave his mind. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the child running with the doll, and then the woman on the bench. It was Carolina. There was no denying it. Her face was the same, just a little tired and depressed, but it was her. At 6 a.m. he got up, not even waiting for the alarm, went to the kitchen, drank strong coffee, and called Marcella. "Anything?" he asked. "I have data already. I had to contact an acquaintance at the mayor's office, but I got results." Rodrigo paused for a few seconds. Tense. "Send everything to my email. Address, full name, any information about the woman and the daughter."
Marcella immediately sent the email. Rodrigo opened it on his phone and began to read.
The woman's name was indeed Carolina Menezes da Costa. She was 35 years old. She lived in Capão Redondo, in a simple village, with her daughter Ana Luia Costa. No husband, no official relationship registration. She worked as a caregiver for the elderly.
Rodrigo felt a tightness in his chest. This confirmed everything. It was her, and most likely Anna was his daughter.
He took another sip of coffee, but the taste no longer mattered. Everything seemed complicated. He stood, looking at his phone screen, trying to understand how it had all come to this. He thought about going to their address immediately, but decided against it. He needed to think. He didn't want to show up unexpectedly. What if she got angry? What if she wouldn't let him near his daughter? He decided to act more cautiously, asked Marcella to continue the investigation, but not to cause any unnecessary stir. He wanted to know more about Carolina's life now, who her neighbors were, how she lived, where she worked, if she attended a public school, if she received any assistance. Marcella took care of it. Rodrigo decided to drive past her house himself. In the evening, he went to the neighborhood, took a car different from the one he usually used, an ordinary one, and put on a cap so as not to stand out. He knew he would attract attention if he appeared in his usual attire. He parked on a parallel street and walked. The address was a narrow alley, full of cramped houses. Carolina's house was the third. Iron gate, chipped paint, curtains closed. Everything was simple but neat. He stood on the other side of the street, watching. He saw an elderly woman come out of the neighboring house with a garbage bag and decided to strike up a conversation. "Good afternoon. How are you?" "Good afternoon, son. Are you looking for someone?" "I'm looking for the woman who lives in that house. They say she works as a caregiver, Miss Carolina." "Oh yes, Carolina lives there with her daughter. A very good woman. She suffers a lot. The girl is a sweetheart. Is she home?" "I think so. She usually comes around this time. The daughter goes to school after lunch. She picks her up and comes back." Rodrigo thanked her, but didn't go to the door. It wasn't time yet. He returned to his car, got in, and took a deep breath. The desire to see them both was immense, but he had to keep himself in check. There were many unresolved issues between them, and moreover, he needed definite answers. The next day, Marcella brought more information, saying that Carolina had been caring for an elderly woman in an apartment in the Saud neighborhood for 4 months. She worked shifts, earned little, dropped out of school, and had difficulty paying rent. She had no close relatives, only her sister, Claudia Mezes, with whom she barely communicated. "And this Claudia?" Rodrigo asked. "It seems they had a big fight. There was a conflict in the past. The reason couldn't be determined, but the relationship is very bad." Rodrigo wrote down the sister's name. Something inside him was already raising an alarm. He didn't know why, but that woman's name sounded bad. In the following days, Rodrigo silently monitored the situation, asking Marcella to discreetly but respectfully follow Carolina, without approaching or scaring her. He wanted to know her daily routine. Marcella described her weekdays as busy and exhausting. Carolina took her daughter to school, went to work, picked up the girl, then stopped at a store and returned home. Life was difficult, without luxury or support. It seems she's sick, Marcella noted. How so? Sometimes she limps, walks slowly, holds her stomach, maybe pain or fatigue, but she looks unwell. Rodrigo felt his stomach clench. This couldn't be ignored. If she was sick, she needed help. But he didn't yet know how to offer it without invading her privacy. Most importantly, he needed to know the truth about Anna. He decided to do what he had always avoided: wait. It wasn't time to appear yet, but the decision was made. He wanted to help Carolina, to get closer to Anna. He just needed to find the right way so as not to ruin everything. And deep down, he wanted to understand why Carolina had never looked for him. The answer, perhaps, was closer than he thought, much closer than he could have imagined. Rodrigo never dwelled on the past. At least, that's what he told everyone. He moved forward, set goals, and achieved them one after another. But now everything was different. It seemed that something he had buried deep inside was returning with full force, without warning, and he didn't know what to do about it. During a meeting at the office where 4 partners discussed company figures and expansion plans, his thoughts were far away. He remembered Carolina, the scent of her hair, how she slept with her cold feet pressed against him, the jokes only they understood. The last night together before the trip, she lay on the couch, his head in her lap. They both laughed at a silly movie. Then he remembered the farewell day at the airport. She held his backpack, her eyes full of tears, trying to look strong. "Go and achieve everything," she said. "Enjoy every second. Will you wait for me?" "Yes, of course I will." But she didn't wait. Rodrigo returned from his trip after 3 months, called, sent messages, searched all social media. Nothing. She disappeared, literally vanished. He even went to her old apartment, but someone else was living there. He went to her job. They said she had quit. Everything disappeared without explanation, without a note, without warning. This hurt him deeply. He was angry, felt rejected and deceived. He tried to forget for a long time, immersed himself in work, dated other women, traveled, pretended everything was fine. But the truth was, he never understood what happened and never accepted it. Now, after so many years, life had put her back in his path, with a child beside her, a girl who could be his daughter, with the same birthmark. This couldn't be a coincidence. But why had she never told him? Rodrigo left the company building late in the evening, got into his car, and drove without thinking. He drove straight to the address Marcella had given him. His heart pounded. He didn't know if he was angry, anxious, or nervous, probably all at once. He parked his car on a nearby street, got out, and walked. It was already getting dark. Lights were coming on in the houses. The gate of Carolina's house was slightly ajar. He stood outside, breathing deeply, thought about turning back, but something pushed him forward. He knocked hesitantly on the door. It slowly opened. It was her. Carolina looked at him and froze, saying nothing, just wide-eyed as if she had seen a ghost. Rodrigo also froze for a few seconds. Neither of them said a word. It was one of those heavy silences that say more than words. "Hello," he said softly. "I need to talk to you." She slowly blinked, took a step back, and moved aside for him to enter, without a word. The house was simple, neat. A small room with a worn sofa, a TV on an old cabinet, toys in the corner. Rodrigo entered cautiously, looking around. A lump was in his throat. This was her life. "I thought you'd show up now," she finally said. Her voice was different, quiet, a little hoarse. "Why?" he asked, looking directly at her. "Why did you disappear? Why didn't you say anything?" Carolina sat on the sofa and sighed deeply. She ran her hands over her face as if gathering her courage. "Because I thought it was the right thing to do." "Right to disappear? To leave you in the dark. I was pregnant, Rodrigo, and you had just received the biggest offer of your life. You were going to travel, grow, change countries, and I didn't want to be a burden." Rodrigo felt the ground fall away beneath him. She said it as if it were simple, but for him, it was a punch to the gut. "You decided to remove me from my daughter's life? I decided to leave you free." She lowered her head. Silence again. silence full of unspoken words. Rodrigo walked around the room, not knowing what to do with his hands. You should have trusted me. I was afraid. My sister said you would never accept it, that you would want me to have an abortion, and I was terrified. Rodrigo turned to her in confusion. Your sister Claudia knew? Yes, Carolina nodded. She convinced me not to look for you, said you were starting a new life, that you would blame me. Better to forget. Rodrigo snorted. Now everything was starting to fall into place. Claudia had always been harsh, judgmental, and arrogant. She had never liked him, and now he learned that she had interfered where she shouldn't have. And Anna? Does she know about me? No, she knows her father left. She's never seen or heard from you. I had nothing to explain, and I didn't want to lie, so I just kept quiet. Rodrigo took a deep breath, trying to compose himself. Anger, sadness, and the relief of seeing Carolina again mixed within him too strongly. I want to meet my daughter, he said firmly. Carolina looked up, tears welling in her eyes. She opened her mouth to answer, but before she could say anything, a thin voice came from the hallway. Mom, is Uncle leaving? It was Anna Luya in her pajamas, with a teddy bear in her hands, with curious eyes and messy hair. She looked at Rodrigo and smiled, not understanding anything. Rodrigo felt his heart melt. It was her, and it was the first time he had heard his own daughter's voice. Carolina wakes up early every day, around 5:30 a.m. She doesn't even need an alarm because her body is already accustomed to the routine. The first sound she hears is the creak of an old chair dragged across the kitchen floor by the upstairs neighbor. Then comes the barking of a dog from the street, and then Anna Louie's gentle snoring, sleeping on the mattress nearby. The house is small, 2 rooms, a cramped bathroom, and a tiny area she calls a kitchen, but where barely 2 people can stand. Rent eats up more than half of her earnings, but it's all she has. The main thing is that Anna has a place to sleep, to play, to live with some safety. Carolina gets up slowly because in recent months she has been feeling strange pains, sharp stomach cramps, constant malaise that comes and goes, but she puts it off. Right now she can't afford to be sick. She can't stop. She washes quickly, ties her hair in a bun, puts on her usual sweater and torn jeans, prepares warm milk for Anna, hides a note with warm words in her lunchbox, and wakes her daughter with kisses on her face. Good morning, little flower. Time to get up. She slowly opens her eyes, smiles, and stretches. The first 2 minutes of the day are always like this. Calm, tender, almost magical. Carolina holds on tightly to these moments. They give her strength to keep going. After dropping her daughter off at school, Carolina takes 2 buses to get to the house where she works, caring for Mrs. Azira, an 83-year-old, stubborn, grumpy, and eccentric woman. The work is not easy. Mrs. Azira can barely hear, complains all the time, and demands attention. Carolina cleans the house, bathes her, prepares lunch, monitors her medication, and listens to repetitive stories about when she was a teacher. You look like my granddaughter, you know. But my granddaughter never visits me. She says this at least 3 times a week. Carolina smiles, even without being in the mood. Her head is heavy. Sometimes in the middle of work, she gets very dizzy and has to sit down for a few minutes. She pretends everything is fine. If she tells anyone, she risks losing her job, and she can't afford that. She leaves around 4 p.m., already with an aching body, and starts her journey home. Sometimes she buys bread on the way if she has any spare change. On other days, she improvises dinner from what's at home, pasta with egg, rice with sausage, anything to satisfy their hunger. Anna returns from school energetic, telling stories of the day. Carolina tries to listen carefully, but there are days when her thoughts drift far away. To the unpaid electricity bill, to the failed attempts to schedule a checkup, to the pain that doesn't go away, to the anxiety about the future. At the end of the day, after a shower and a simple dinner, they both lie on the mattress they share. She loves falling asleep cuddled up to her mom. Carolina closes her eyes, but sleep doesn't come easily. She thinks about what will happen if she can no longer work one day. She tries to imagine a better future for her daughter, although her own becomes increasingly uncertain. And now, with Rodrigo's return to their lives, everything has become even more complicated. She doesn't know what to do. She still loves him deep down, despite everything, despite years of separation and pain. But fear screams the loudest. The fear of being deceived, losing control, giving herself again, and seeing everything crumble. And the biggest fear, that Anna will suffer. Carolina is tired. But it's not just physical fatigue. It's a tiredness that accumulates inside, makes her eyes heavy, tightens her chest. This kind of exhaustion doesn't go away with sleep, but only disappears when life truly changes. She doesn't talk to anyone about it. Her sister Claudia, who could support her, constantly condemns her. She only appears to give advice, complain, point out mistakes. She never asked if help was needed, never offered it. When Carolina got pregnant with Diana, Claudia was the first to say that she would regret it, that she would raise her daughter alone, without support or a future, that she would become a neglected mother. These were her words. Carolina keeps all this to herself, swallows her pride, hides her sadness, and holds on steadfastly every day. For Anna, she does everything. She still doesn't know what to do with Rodrigo. He said he wants to meet his daughter, that he wants to be a part of her life, and she believes him. But at the same time, she's afraid that he will approach only on impulse and leave again, afraid that Anna will get attached and suffer, afraid to open her heart and get hurt again. Deep down, Carolina wants to believe that everything can get better, but it's hard. Life has taught her not to expect too much, to live modestly, to smile even when everything hurts. And now, with this persistent pain and the checkup she still hasn't been able to get, everything has become even more urgent and difficult. She just wants to breathe peacefully, wants time without fear, without pain, without uncertainty. But for now, she only has a pile of bills to pay, a beautiful daughter who needs her completely, and a heart full of the past that beats stronger every time she remembers Rodrigo's eyes looking at Anna, as if he already knew the truth. Rodrigo thought about Carolina all day, tried to work, handle office matters, but everything seemed meaningless. He could only think of her and the girl Anna. Her appearance personally shook him in a way he hadn't expected. It seemed that a huge part of his life that had always been missing suddenly appeared out of nowhere and was right here, with curious eyes, a shy smile, and a birthmark on her arm, exactly like his. He spent hours thinking about how to approach them. He didn't want to seem crazy, didn't want to scare Carolina, but he also couldn't pretend that nothing was happening. He needed to talk to her again, understand the situation, and deep down, he needed her more than he wanted to admit. At the end of the day, he got in his car and drove. He didn't warn her, just drove. He parked his car on a nearby street, pulled up his jacket hood, and got out. The sky was overcast. A cold evening wind bit his face. He walked slowly, his heart pounding, his head spinning. When he approached the house, he hesitated. The gate was slightly ajar again. A light was on in the living room. He heard the sound of the television and children's laughter from inside, his daughter's laughter. He took a deep breath, and this time, clapped his hands louder. Carolina opened the door. This time, she wasn't scared. It seemed she had been waiting. Hello, can I come in? She thought for a second, but opened the gate. Anna is watching cartoons, only a few minutes left. Rodrigo entered, looking around. Everything was the same as the first time, but with a different feeling. Now he was completely there. He acknowledged what he felt and what he needed to say. I can't pretend nothing happened. To see that girl, to see you. Carolina crossed her arms, leaning against the wall. Rodrigo, Anna is everything to me. This is my life. I did what I thought was right at the time. I didn't know how you would react. I didn't even know if you would want this in your life. Why didn't you give me a chance to choose? She lowered her head. For a few seconds, only the sound of the television from the other room could be heard. I was scared, just scared. Scared that you would disappear. Scared that you would appear and then vanish again. Scared of confusing her, hurting Anna. The truth is, I felt alone and decided to move on without you. Rodrigo took a step forward. His voice grew softer. I was alone too, you know. Carolina looked up. There was sadness in her eyes, but also a remnant of tenderness. a remnant of longing that she tried to hide. "And what do you want now?" "I want to meet my daughter. I want to be close. I want to know what she likes, what she doesn't, how she sleeps, what she dreams about. I want to be a part of her life." Slowly, little by little, Carolina sighed deeply, as if carrying the whole world on her shoulders. "What if she gets attached and you disappear?" "I won't disappear." "And what if you try to take her away from me?" Rodrigo fell silent. It hurt, but he understood. She was truly afraid. It was a fear that couldn't be dispelled with a beautiful phrase. It was something only time could change. "I didn't come to take anything from you. I came to add. I don't even know how to be a father, but I want to try." At that moment, Anna came out into the hallway. Her hair was haphazardly tied. In her hands, she held a notebook with drawings. She stopped when she saw Rodrigo. "Hi, Uncle." "Hi, Anna," he replied with a smile, trying to hide his emotions. "Will you stay to see my drawing?" Carolina tensed, but Rodrigo answered without hesitation. "If Mom allows, I'll stay." Anna looked at her mom, waiting for an answer as if it were the most important thing in the world. Carolina hesitated, but for the first time in many years she said, "Yes, you can show him, sweetie." The girl ran to the sofa, sat down, and opened the notebook. Rodrigo sat beside her and began to look at the drawings as she explained each one. One was a castle, another with a winged dog, the third a family. "This is me, Mom, and this is the dad I made up because everyone at school draws a mom and dad, so I made up my own." Rodrigo swallowed. Carolina turned away and pretended to look for something in the kitchen, but her eyes filled with tears. "Can I draw myself too?" he asked, pointing to the sheet. Anna smiled. "You can. Will you be my pretend dad?" Rodrigo smiled back. "Who knows?" She gave him a pencil, and he drew a stick figure next to the girl. He even gave it a name, Rodpa. Anna laughed. Carolina stood, watching them. This scene was light and beautiful, but at the same time painful. It was everything she had always wanted, but never thought she would get. Rodrigo next to her daughter. She didn't know if she should allow herself this, but for the first time in many years, she felt a spark of hope, even a small one. Rodrigo spent the next few days trying to make sense of everything. Sometimes he woke up with a pounding heart, thinking it was just a strange dream. Sometimes he found himself smiling in the middle of the day, remembering how Anna proudly showed her drawings. But there were also hours of silence, when questions overwhelmed him. What if he's wrong? What if she's not his daughter? What if it's just a terrible coincidence, a cruel twist of fate? He understood that he needed certainty, for himself, for Carolina, but most of all, for Anna. He couldn't enter the girl's life with doubts, couldn't appear, build a connection, and then find out it was all a lie. In the evening, he called Carolina. Her voice sounded tired and distant. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Yes, a little pain, but I already have a doctor's appointment. Everything's under control." Rodrigo hesitated for a second. "I wanted to ask you something." "Tell me." "A DNA test." The silence on the other end was heavy. It seemed the connection had been lost. "It's not that I don't believe you," he tried to explain. "It's just too much. I need certainty, clarity." "She deserves it." "I understand," she said after a few seconds. "I just didn't want it to be something cold, like a piece of paper with a result. But if it gives you peace, okay." Rodrigo thanked her. The next day, he took care of the arrangements himself. He called a reliable clinic, booked the test, and informed Carolina. She said she would explain to Anna that it was just a medical checkup, a simple procedure to check her health. On the day of the test, Rodrigo arrived early, nervous, fiddling with his phone, trying to look calm. When Carolina and Anna arrived, he stood up. The girl happily ran to him. "Are we taking the test together?" "Yes, sweetie, quick and simple." They entered the room together. The nurse was friendly and explained everything in detail. First, Anna's saliva was taken, then Rodrigo's. Carolina watched, arms crossed, with a serious expression. She didn't look angry, but she wasn't relaxed either. "How long will it take?" she asked. 3 business days, the nurse replied. On the way out, Anna held both their hands, one on each side, and bounced between them like a regular family going for ice cream. Rodrigo looked at Carolina. She averted her gaze. The next day, Rodrigo decided to go to the office to pass the time. He tried to distract himself with reports, meetings, conversations with partners, but nothing helped. Even the employees noticed. "Is everything okay, sir?" one of the secretaries asked. "Yes, just tired." A lie. You were restless. On the 3rd day, the result arrived by email. Rodrigo was alone in the office, sitting in front of his computer, and for a few minutes, he stared at the email subject line. His heart beat like a drum. He clicked slowly, reading line by line. Genetic compatibility, 99.999%. Anna was his daughter. Rodrigo leaned back in his chair, ran his hands over his face, laughed, cried, and was speechless. It was a strange feeling, as if everything he had always searched for was found in one paragraph of a medical report. His daughter existed. She was alive, real, and now he knew. He picked up the phone and called Carolina. "The result is here. And she's my daughter," he said. Silence. "You knew?" "Yes?" he asked. "I knew, but hearing it from you is different. I'm here, Carolina, ready." "For what?" She didn't answer, just hung up. The next day he went to her house. Anna wasn't there. She was at school. Carolina opened the door with the look of someone who hadn't slept well. "Thank you for believing me," he said. She nodded, her eyes full of tears. "I just needed to know for sure," he added. "Now I know." They were silent for a while. "And now, Rodrigo, what are you going to do with this truth?" He sighed deeply. "I want to be Anna's father. I want to be a part of her life and help you too, truly, without imposing or pressuring. But I won't disappear. Not now, not ever." Carolina seemed to be struggling internally between fear and relief, pride and a desire to accept. "I don't know how to do this. I never thought this day would come." "We can learn together, step by step," she said, looking at him as if she finally saw the old Rodrigo, the one she had once loved, the one she had let go out of fear. "Then it's good," she said softly, "step by step." There had been no news from Claudia for a long time. She and Carolina barely spoke, and this had been going on even before Anna was born. They were sisters who grew up together, shared everything, but at some point their relationship wore thin, quietly crumbled, and each went their own way. Arguments started over trifles, but over time they turned into heavy, deep resentments. The biggest problem arose when Carolina got pregnant. Claudia snapped, called her sister irresponsible, said she would end up alone with a child. When she realized arguments were useless, she just disappeared. But now, with Rodrigo's return and his rapprochement with his daughter, Claudia reappeared, as if sensing conflict in the air, and came only to add fuel to the fire. The call came suddenly one Tuesday morning. Carolina was packing Anna's backpack for school when the phone rang. "Hello, is it true?" Claudia's dry voice on the other end made Carolina freeze. "Claudia, is it true that Ricardo is back? That he's now walking around like a prince on a white horse?" The tone was full of irony. Carolina closed the living room door so Anna wouldn't hear. "He's back, yes. He's trying to get closer to his daughter." "Now she's his daughter? You managed alone for so many years, and now you just accept him? Do you think he'll stay? Wake up, Carolina. I'm not asking for your opinion. I'm warning you. These rich guys have everything under control. Do what they want. They disappear when they get tired, and then they come back as if nothing happened. You don't know anything, Claudia. Don't interfere." "He knows you're sick?" Carolina swallowed. "I heard from the neighbor. Tanya said she saw you almost fall in the street last week. Said you were pale, weak, and now this guy is getting into your life." "He's not getting into it. He's trying to help." "You've always been naive, thought people would save you. But look at your life. Look where you are now." Carolina was silent. It hurt. Claudia knew where to strike. "Mind your own business," she said at the end, trying to sound firm. "I will, but if he hurts you again, don't come crying on my shoulder. And also, I'll find out everything about him. I won't let this guy play with my niece." The call ended. Carolina stood holding the phone, breathing heavily. Her head was spinning. She knew Claudia was dangerous, always had been, not physically, but with words and actions. Claudia knew how to manipulate, set people against each other, and worst of all, she enjoyed it. That evening, Rodrigo came to visit Anna. Carolina didn't mention the call, didn't want to spoil the moment. The girl was happy, proudly showing a new drawing with the letter R in the corner. It depicted a stick figure in a suit next to a girl in a colorful dress. They were in the park. After Anna fell asleep, they sat in the kitchen drinking coffee. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Just a little tired," she replied. Rodrigo felt something was off, but didn't press. He was still learning to interact with this new, more closed-off and suspicious version of Carolina. The next day, Claudia came without warning. She knocked early in the morning, with a grim face. Her hair was tied up, a notebook in her hands. "I came to talk," she said, entering without an invitation. Carolina tried to remain calm. "About what?" "About that guy, Rodrigo. I checked everything. I know who he is, what he does, where he works. I saw articles, his business, the size of his company, the luxurious apartment he lives in, and that he's engaged to a woman named Fernanda. Did you know?" Carolina froze. "No, I didn't." "Are you kidding?" "No, I even found photos. He's with her at dinner, in interviews. Do you think this guy will give up everything for a life here, with you, with a child?" A hole seemed to form in Carolina's chest. "He said he was alone. Men say anything to get what they want. It's always been that way, and you, as always, believe he's changed. People don't change, they just get better at disguising it." Carolina's hands trembled. She picked up her phone and typed Rodrigo's name along with Fernanda's into Google. Photos, headlines, interviews appeared quickly. They smiled, holding hands. One of the pictures showed Rodrigo at a gala, and the caption read, "Rodrigo Sampaio and fiancée Fernanda Mello at a charity event in Sao Paulo." Carolina felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. "I warned you," Claudia said coldly. "These guys have two lives. One they show, the other they hide. And you, as always, fell for it." Carolina sat on the sofa for so long she couldn't count the time. Her phone, with the screen on, still showed the photo of Rodrigo and Fernanda at an elegant event, surrounded by light, in evening attire, as if they lived in a world completely unrelated to her life. This image seemed like a mockery. It hurt more than she could admit. Inside, her chest tightened, as if she couldn't breathe. Claudia had already left. Of course. After spitting her venom, she did what she always did, dropped a bomb and disappeared. She didn't ask how her sister was, didn't want to listen to explanations, left no room for dialogue. Only pain. Carolina slowly got up and went to the bedroom. Anna was sleeping peacefully with one of the drawings she had made with Rodrigo lying by the bed, a yellow sun in the corner of the sheet, and three figures holding hands, mom, daughter, and dad. She sat on the mattress and looked at her sleeping daughter. She wondered how everything could have been different. She wondered if she had done the right thing by hiding the truth for so long. She wondered first and foremost if she was about to get into trouble again. She wanted so badly to believe that Rodrigo had changed, that he had returned with a sincere heart. But what if Claudia was right? The next day, Rodrigo, as usual, came in the evening, bringing 2 strawberry ice creams, Anna's favorite. The girl ran to him, jumped onto his lap, and began telling him news from school. "Today, I drew us in the park. There was a dog and chocolate cake." Rodrigo laughed, as always, when she talked non-stop. "I want to see that drawing later." "Okay." Carolina watched them from the kitchen, trying to pretend everything was normal, but inside, everything was out of place. After Anna went to bathe, Rodrigo remained in the living room, looking through the photos the girl had glued into her notebook. Carolina entered, crossed her arms, and stood. "I need to talk to you." Rodrigo noticed the tone, slowly closed the notebook, and stood up. What happened? Are you really going to pretend you don't have a fiancé? Rodrigo slowly blinked, caught off guard. What do you mean? I saw the photos, Rodrigo. You, Fernanda, articles, events, everything. You said you were alone. He ran a hand over his face and sighed. I should have told you. Yes, I was engaged to Fernanda. We had a long relationship, but we broke up a few months ago. Then why are you still appearing with her in photos? Because the press loves old pictures, and Fernanda didn't take the breakup well. She's still trying to maintain the image that we're together. I try not to display it, but I'm no longer with her. Are you sure? Or are you just going to fix everything now? I'm not the person you knew, Carolina. I've never lied to you about my feelings now. She sighed deeply. She was tired of pretty speeches. But before she could say anything, Rodrigo took an envelope from his backpack. The result is in. Her eyes widened. He opened the envelope, took out the paper, and handed it to her. You can read it calmly. Carolina looked at the numbers, at the complex terms, but immediately found the line that interested her. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. She felt her legs give out, sat on the sofa with the paper in her hands, looking and rereading. It's not that I doubted, she said softly, but seeing this, it's powerful. Rodrigo slowly sat beside her. I felt it from the very first glance at Anna, but now there's no doubt. She's my daughter, and I'm her father. They were silent. The television was on, but without sound. In the room, Anna quietly sang a song she had learned at school. What are you going to do now? Carolina asked. I want to be a part of her life, with you or without you. I want to take responsibility. I want to be there. And if you allow me, I want to truly help both of you. And your ex-fiancée, will she accept this? She has no choice. This is my life now. Carolina looked at him. There was still disbelief in her eyes, but also a thin thread of hope deep inside. She knew she needed help, that she couldn't go on like this. It was hard to carry everything alone, but it was also difficult to make room for someone who had once left. Then Rodrigo took her hands. Give me a chance, just